Hey, how you guys doing? Welcome back. You ever seen my channel before? Please subscribe. Alright, so if you guys watched my last video of the abandoned village, we came here to go see Fort Bull, and I did leave off saying that we're waiting for the Rome Historical Society to take us back there, because if you watch that video, you would understand what's going on. If you haven't, it's right here. I never really did this before with the video. Check it out and I'll explain everything that's going on. We're just waiting for the guy right now. He said he was going to meet me at 1. It is about 12:50 right now, so hopefully he lets me film back there and it can show you guys some history of this area. All right guys, hopefully he comes later.
So let's see here.
Has anybody ever metal detected in there? Wow, probably found some stuff, huh?
Stole some stuff.
Oh.
Right?
Yep. Oh, I thought you guys did it.
Well, we've had archaeological surveys out here, so that's all sanctioned by the state, permitted by the state, all of that stuff. So that's on the up and up. But yeah, we've had relic hunters come in here and just.
Yeah, that's messed up.
Yeah.
Because you would dig it up and you'd think to donate it, even if you did it, so you guys could put it in the museum so everybody could see.
So what you're seeing here, and again, I mean, you're seeing actually the remnants of Fort Wood Creek. Let me give you kind of a little bit of the history.
Yeah.
Right? So, 1750. Yeah. So I'll start 1754. The British and the French are in competition again, you know, to secure basically the resources of the Ohio Valley for trade.
Yep.
So the French can get into the inner part of the continent, St. Lawrence River, Great Lakes, right? They can get into the Ohio Valley that way. The British, the only way they can get in is through this, basically the Mohawk Valley.
Okay.
Right? So you have the Hudson River up to Albany. You have a 16-mile road between Albany and Schenectady. From Schenectady, you put your boats in the water and you go up the water to Little Falls. You portage for about a mile at Little Falls, get back in the water, come up here to the Oneida Carrying Place,
okay,
which is Rome, and you have to portage 2 to 4 miles depending on water levels of Wood Creek and water level of Mohawk River. Once you got into Wood Creek, you could take that out to Oneida Lake.
Okay.
Then at Oswego Falls, Fulton today, you had to do like another small portage, about a mile long. Then you could continue north and get out to Oswego, and then you have access to the Great Lakes.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So it's
very important, right?
It's 250 miles.
Yep.
Only 22 miles of it is actual land.
Yeah.
So the British were using this, you know, with the fur trade, you know.
Yep, for trading.
Yeah, yeah, and so were the indigenous tribes of the area, you know. So 1754-55, tensions get really hot between the French and the British, and the British decide they're going to launch multiple expeditions in North America, but one of them was to take the French fort at Niagara Falls,
yep,
basically. So in order to do that, they had to put 2,500 men into Oswego. So this becomes a supply line.
Yeah.
You know, and they're they're basically erecting storehouses along the way. So they decide to put a storehouse on the east end of the Carry and a storehouse on the west end of the Carry. And long story short, they get to the fall of 1755. They know that they're not going to launch their expedition that season because it's late in the year.
Yep.
Lake effect.
Yep.
Lake Ontario's crazy.
Winter's coming. Yep.
Yep. So they go into winter quarters. You know, they don't fight in the winter back then. At least the officers don't. But they order the storehouses fortified.
Yeah.
So they stockade them, right? So the French didn't like this. So they said in March of 1756, so we go from October 1755 to March 1756, they send an expedition down from Ogdensburg.
Okay.
La Presentation
Yep.
was the fort up there. They send like 360 men, including Indigenous support.
I was gonna say, didn't they team up with?
Yeah, they had
Yep,
Indigenous
yep.
support, yep. And they come down here, 2-week journey across the North Country in March
Ooh,
1756,
wow.
right? So they get down here March 26th. The French commander sends out scouts. So he's basically, how familiar with Rome are you?
I'm not from Rome. I know somewhat of it. I don't know
Okay.
much about it.
So, you know where like the Castro's restaurant is out
Yeah,
here?
I know where that
General
is,
Long-
yep.
So that's Wood Creek coming out of the north.
Okay.
Okay. So you have Wood Creek coming out of the north, turning west, and basically where Stanwix is, you have Mohawk River coming out of the north and turning east, right? So there's the portage.
Yep.
So he arrives the 26th, and he's like, he sends out his scouts to the two on each side. He wants to get intelligence, right? So he finds out that the fort on the east side, which is basically where the burned area is over there now.
Okay.
It has small cannon, probably swivel guns, little 3-pounder swivel guns. It has about 150 men in garrison. There's some others camped around it. He's like, that's not good, you know. And then he finds out Fort Bull's just 60 men, no cannon, and there's a bunch of loaded with supplies destined for Oswego.
Oh, so they could.
But the Wood Creek was frozen up, right?
Yep.
So it was just stockpiling here all winter.
Wow.
And there's some bateau and stuff out there. And anyway, and he finds out there's a supply convoy coming across. Well, he's 2-week march, right?
Yep.
He's starving. They had to kill a horse, you know.
They need
to eat.
supplies.
So they raid they ambush him, silent.
Wow.
So it probably would have happened right around De Castro's, right around that area.
Yeah.
Okay. So as this is happening, he gets the supplies he needs to return north. And his native allies are like, "Oh, we're ready. We don't want to attack forts." They have no interest. That was
Yeah,
just
they
kinda-
have no. Yep.
But one of the British guys, one of the Teamsters, laborers really, got away from that ambush and starts running toward Fort Williams. So it's kind of like, okay, the jig's up, right?
Yeah.
They know we're going to be, you know. So he says, hey, to his Indian allies, he's like, hey, I'm gonna attack Fort Bull, and they're like, no, we want nothing to do with that, but we'll stay on your flank.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
So they stay. So he splits his force. Half of it comes here, and the other stays on his flank, which is a good thing because Fort Williams ends up sending out a sortie to try to attack them,
Yep.
and so they were able to repel that. But his force comes. The other force led by Deliri comes this way. They get to about 200 yards to the east of here. They drop their packs. And they say a prayer. He tells he had a few of his indigenous allies follow him, you know, and he's like, hey, I want to sneak up on the fort. They had no idea, you know, that they were out there or anything. But as they got to about 100 yards, they let out their war cry, and it's on, right?
Wow.
So there's bateaumen out front,
Yeah.
out in front of the fort. They are like, whoa, you know, and they're trying to get in the fort, but they're closing the gate,
Yep.
right? So they get stuck outside, so they take off in the woods, and they're chasing after them. And Deliri comes from the east, and he comes to the front of the fort. He sends men to the flankers, and then he starts hacking away at the door. at the
Holy
gate.
cow.
So they fight for about an hour. He's just hacking away.
Yep.
Finally breaks through. And they get in, and it's just like, you know, they just take people out. You know, they're just
Holy cow.
right. So at that point, shortly thereafter, when they gained access, the powder magazine caught on fire. So now remember, there's all the supplies.
Yep,
There's all
the
winter.
supplies are
There's
building
all
up. Yep.
So he's like, hey, we got to get out of here. So they start running, and they get just far enough away that when the powder magazine explodes in 3 separate explosions, it forced them to the ground, but they were all pretty safe with the exception of one guy that got thrown like 200 yards. Whole nother conversation.
Wow.
But then he orders. It was about 6,000 pounds of gunpowder that blew up.
Wow.
Then he orders his men back into the fort, and he says, hey, take anything that the British can use and dump it into the creek so that they can't use it anymore. So that's what they do. he takes a few prisoners, he rendezvous with the guys that were on his flank, and he heads north.
Wow.
So Fort Bull's destroyed. The east wall's blown out. You know.
Did they get much supplies or?
Well, they had what they needed to return anyways, but they definitely so Oswego, you know, needs these supplies.
Yep.
It's wintertime. Well, early spring, but those guys were starving out.
Oh yeah, because it's, yep.
So they really needed these supplies. And so about a month and a half later, they decide that they're going to build a replacement fort, Fort Wood Creek, which is the fort you see today. So the original original fort didn't have moats.
Okay.
It was a little bit smaller. And so there's always been a little bit of confusion. You know, this is called Fort Bull. It's really Fort Wood Creek.
I heard that.
And there's all this crazy stuff. So think about this. Fort Bull is an area.
Oh, okay.
Right? And the best way to connect it to that is to say Fort Bull's a battlefield. Because it's not just the four walls of the fort.
Okay.
You have the British throwing grenades, right? They're throwing them out of the fort.
Yeah.
They're going X amount of distance. They're exploding. Guys are getting thrown 200 yards from powder magazine. So it's a battlefield.
What type of grenades were they? Just.
So they're about 4 pounds.
Okay.
You know, had powder inside. And
you just light it. You just
shot put style.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so,
that's crazy.
So, so the British had grenades. They were throwing them at the French.
All right, so basically the battle area is Fort Bull, you're saying, and then the actual fort is Wood Creek. What fort?
It was Fort Wood Creek, but then because it was located where Fort Bull was, or adjacent to Fort Bull, everybody called it Fort Bull.
That's what I said. That's what I thought.
So it's like, and then there's a few other little things in there to even throw more confusion in. But that's the basic thing. It's an area, right?
Okay. All right.
So so I'll talk a little bit about this. So we've done archaeology in the last couple of years.
Okay.
Okay. So let me back up. 40 years ago, 50 years ago, there was a book that was written called Massacre at Fort Bull. Really good book. And the guy was an archaeologist, and he had a theory that the original fort was over there in that grass over there. Okay.
Right over here?
Right over there.
Okay.
Yep. But multiple explorations since then hasn't really revealed much. But that's caused, some question. Is the fort over there? Is the fort underneath this fort?
Like right here?
Is a little, So we've been doing archaeology the last couple of years, and one of the things we found was a charred plank. So we know the fort blew up.
Okay.
Right. Charred plank laying down, impacted musket ball right on top of it, French musket ball.
Holy cow.
Right, and grenade fragments. So we know
that there was,
like right here. You know what I mean? Like.
So you guys found that
right in this area.
Right in this area. That's crazy. It's got to be something to see that. Like,
So, and we have that stuff at the Historical Society.
I'm gonna have to check that out sometime.
Yeah, you'll have. Yeah, come on.
That is awesome.
Check it out for sure. But this fort, so this fort's built to replace Fort Bull, and but unfortunately, the British, or to the French's benefit, the British lose Oswego in the summer of 1756, just a few months after this is built.
It was taken over, or they just left it?
It was taken over. The French capture it.
Wow.
So now the British don't need the supply line.
The supply line, yep.
So they order this burned down. And there were other forts too, and you'll see in there.
They burn it down so they can't take it over?
Correct.
Because then they would have to retake
So they go down to
and
they retreat to Herkimer. And they stay down there for 2 years until they come back and build Fort Stanwix.
Holy cow.
But there's other forts too. There's this fort, there's Fort Newport, there's
the one in Utica area?
Old Fort Schuyler.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 1760.
Okay, that's
so
way
that's,
ahead.
That's way ahead. Right,
okay.
right. Right. So what we're talking about is pre-Fort Stanwix, 1755, 56.
Before the America even became independent.
We're a British colony.
Yeah.
Like I said, so they order these forts to burn down. You'll read more about those forts in that map there. So anyway, they burn them down. They retreat to German Flats, Herkimer.
Yep, I know.
Yep. And they don't come back till 2 years when they start building Fort Stanwix. But then they also start launching expeditions into Canada, and all those expeditions were launched from here. So
wow.
You see where that tree is right there?
Yep.
That's actually an earthen dam that goes out, and they would have had probably logs out into the creek there, and they would have built up they had the water. They would dammed it up, and they had the water back up, and then they'd open the sluice gates, and it would help their bateau float down to the next.
Oh, wow.
Right. So they had a series of these. It's
kind of like the Erie Canal, right?
How you have the locks,
yeah,
right?
The locks, you build up water.
But yeah, so I think of it more like riding the wave, right?
Yeah,
so
okay.
You got this wave, because there was another one up above here. Yeah. So they would open that gate, they would ride the wave down to this fort. Maybe they'd have enough to keep going, but maybe they had to hang in this pond for a while and then go down to Fort Ricky, which is actually another fort.
It's really a fort?
Yeah.
Fort Ricky.
Yeah. So you know where the spider monkey is? I
haven't been there in years, but I have been.
Have you? House is on the mound where Fort Ricky was.
Oh my God.
Right. So
I didn't know that.
That cool, right? But
how deep was Wood Creek? Like without the dams?
It's hard to tell.
Okay.
It's hard to tell. So if you go just to the west of here, the creek kind of comes right up next to the road. Everything, because it was log choked,
Yeah.
They were constantly cleaning it out. The bateau needed about 15 to 20 inches of water to float fully loaded.
Wow.
So they needed about an inch per 100 pounds that they had in them.
Okay.
Okay, so 1,500 pounds, give or take. So they wouldn't have needed a whole lot. But who's to say?
Yeah.
Without actual remains going all the way across. Because this was used after the French and Indian War. It was used after the American Revolution.
This was?
The waterway.
Oh, okay, the waterway.
Yeah, so pre-Erie Canal, they had another canal called Western Inland Lock Navigation.
Wow.
So, which utilized sections of Wood Creek.
That's crazy.
So that would have been a canal as well, pre-Erie.
So all this right here was a pond at one time, you think? Wow. And they dammed it up right down here, right?
Yep, right where the tree is. We'll go
right there. Okay.
Yeah. So as we go down here a little bit, just so you know, there are some woodchuck holes and everything.
Okay.
I don't want to see you roll an ankle or anything. But yeah, and you can, as we get closer, you can actually see how much elevation there is here.
So this is just all the remains and stuff of the.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's all built up earthworks.
And this was all water, well, a pond, right?
Would have been, yeah. So did the pond fill up this whole thing? I don't know. Did it only come over here? Yeah.
All right, so you don't know if this was all filled with water, you're saying, and then you can only assume.
Right.
But it's crazy though. So it was wood that was stuck in the ground.
Yeah, there would have been a stockade probably right about here.
Okay.
This would have been like the southwest wall.
Okay.
Because that bastion points due south. That's due south. Okay, so the bastion, which you can't really see much of it here today, but that's south. That's the west bastion. The east bastion's up there, and the north bastion is the one we walked on to get out here.
Okay.
So, but if you come over here, you can really see the earthworks of Fort Wood Creek, and the stockade would have been 16 to 18 feet above this wall, this little this mound right here.
Yep.
Right. So you would have had another 16 to 18 feet above you here. with a moat.
Oh, that's the original moat?
That's the moat.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can see how it's cut.
Yep.
Much like Fort Stanwix.
I was going to say.
A miniature Fort Stanwix, right? So there were no cannon here, though, so you don't have the...
Oh, I can see it now.
Yeah.
Wow. I can see it a lot more than over there.
Yeah, well, they put in the fill where we walked on. That's fill from the 1940s,
okay.
you know, so this whole, like, you know, you could drive your car right up to the boulder kind of thing.
But I could definitely see it
so
right here.
you know?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, did somebody refine this fort, or like was it discovered, or was it written in history that there was a fort here?
It was written in history.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always been, you'll see it referenced many times in the French and Indian War after the battle.
Okay.
Including during the construction of Fort Stanwix. It's mentioned during the siege of Fort Stanwix in 1777, when Ledger came down and laid siege to Fort Stanwix. When he retreated 21 days later, he ordered a cannon here to cover his retreat.
Oh wow.
It's referenced in canal documents, Western and landlocked canal documents, and Erie Canal documents. And then it's also referenced late 19th century, they would come out here. So you got to figure, like, before Fort Stanwix is recreated, this was all the community had as far as a fort, right? So they would come out here. They'd jump on canal boats and they'd come out here, or they'd walk, or they'd jump on the train. They'd come out here and they'd have, like, parties on, like, Labor Day and stuff.
Really?
So there's, like, numerous pictures of people hanging out, and we believe this is a powder magazine.
Right here?
Right here. Numerous pictures of people just hanging out here, bands, you know, marching bands and stuff.
Well, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, is that in the historical museum?
We have photos of that.
Oh,
in the
okay.
Historical
Okay,
Society,
so I had to check that out sometime.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So.
Yeah, I can really see it now over here, like crazy.
So this is we've got this tree we've got to take care of over here. But for the most part, there are.
Yeah,
this is the danger zone.
Yep.
Here. But yeah, you can, if you're looking back that way, you can see, because we're on the tip of the East Bastion right now.
Now, how far would the woods be cut back from the wall or the moat?
So think about it this way. So Fort Stanwix during the siege in 1777, so 20 years later, is cleared to about 500 yards around it.
Wow. So
it's probably, you know, when Fort Stanwix was being constructed, it was probably 250, you know, maybe. So I'm thinking, and we know that the one body with the French expedition got thrown about 200 yards. So it would make sense that it was cleared to about 200.
So they could see somebody. If they had a watch, they could see somebody come to the woods. They couldn't just.
They could see.
Okay.
Although they did get to about 100
without being
over there.
spotted
Yeah,
yet.
yeah. But again, you're pre-GPS. You're pre.
Yeah.
Right. So you're just you're basing everything on leagues and all that stuff. So. Yeah. Watch that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a really good shot right here because you can kind of see the.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I can see the four walls, the 4 points from this shot. Yeah. Wow. It is not that big of a fort.
No, it's about 190 feet, 200 feet, tip to tip.
Now, was that a big fort back in that time, or no?
No.
So it was a small fort even back then.
Yeah. This is so this is the edge of the British Empire.
Okay.
Right? So if you think about that, think about if you were a British soldier from England and you got shipped to North America and you have to go up the Hudson in a boat, then you have to march, then you get in all these bateaus, or you march, or they don't even let you in the bateau and you have to march your way here, and you get 200 yards, there's nothing beyond here until you got to Oswego. And that's an hour and a half drive, right?
That's crazy.
So you might as well have been on the moon. Right? So when this fort, just prior to this fort being burned down, after Oswego fell, there was about 160 men here in garrison here.
British? You said?
British.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many men
New
attacked?
Jersey,
How many
actually.
men attacked the fort?
So Fort Bull,
Yep.
again,
Yep.
you know, this is the replacement. Fort Bull, there was about 60.
60.
Yeah, there was about 60, and he ends up, Gaspar Deliri ends up with about 30 prisoners between his ambush,
Yep.
fighting off the sortie over there, and whoever he got from attacking Fort Bull.
Now, with the Indians siding with the indigenous people, I don't know if you call them Indian or not, what do they get out of it? The siding with the French, helping them fight, like, what did they get? Was there trading, or was there?
Well, you know, and I'll be honest with you, I have never gone that deep.
Okay, I was just wondering
but
what was the benefit of it.
Well, where we are now is in the territory of the 5 to 6 nations, the Iroquois.
Yes, yep.
Confederacy, right? The Haudenosaunee. This is Oneida territory.
Yep, Oneida, yep.
Hence Oneida Carry.
Yep.
Right? So you have Onondaga over in Syracuse, right? They're the center of the 5 nations. That's where, you know, they would have all of their ceremonies, when they would come together, and they would, because they were doing politics too, right? They had their own internal stuff that they had to do.
Yep.
So you have this, the Mohawk, which are down on the east side, right? They're more aligned with the British. Well, it makes sense because they're closer to where all the British are, right? And as you get further and further away, you get into the Cayuga and Seneca, right, which are out near Niagara, Buffalo. They have more of a traditional sense, and they're going to perhaps lean a little bit more toward the French, right?
Wow, that's crazy.
So you have a little bit of a, for lack of a tug of war within the nations, and you have both sides, the French and the British, playing off of that.
Yep.
Okay, so it's almost like a. Think about a proxy war. Think about Vietnam War.
Okay.
Right. So it's democracy versus communism.
Okay. Yep.
Right. The Vietnamese people, they're stuck in the middle.
They don't really. Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Right? I see what you're saying.
Right.
So they're kind of just.
Well, they had the influence, and they had a lot of influence and a lot of power. And as a matter of fact, when the British first sought to build the storehouses here, they had to put everything on hold because they wanted to get Oneida permission before they proceeded. And the same thing with Fort Stanwix. They said yes, you could build Fort Stanwix, but when the war's over, you got to tear it down. So there was this diplomatic play kind of going on, and I think, I mean, how would you, if this was your home and you had 2, you know, superpowers coming in, you'd be like,
well, and also
just
too,
trying to survive,
you want to
right?
fight both of them too.
No,
so
we don't want to deny anybody access, but, you know, let's just schedule it.
Well, it's good that I did call and schedule, because I found out all this information I would never have known. I would be like saying like, oh, I think this is a wall right here, or this is the moat. I'm not really sure. So then I have no history behind it.
Right.
That's why it was so nice running to that guy at the Riscony battlefield, because he taught me so much about, you know, the history, and it was very intriguing.
Yeah. Yep. Special site. I get to mow it here shortly.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Now, did you what have you found here? Any weapons?
Yeah. Well, not as far as like muskets or anything. No. Most of it's dropped cannonball, French and British.
How many pounds would you say because when we went
the balls are just little.
Oh, little balls.
Yeah,
okay.
Little
Okay. Because I remember when we went to Fort Ticonderoga, they showed us different types of poundage of the balls they use.
Yeah. So cannonballs are a little bit different.
Okay.
You have like, you know, 3-pounder, you know, 6-pounder was pretty much like their light artillery. 9, 12, 18. You could keep going up. We found as big as 12-pounders out here. Now this fort didn't have cannon.
I was gonna say, did it have cannons here?
Did not have cannon. It maybe later on they might have had swivel guns, little swivel guns, but they never had big cannon.
But
like
what
Fort
would they
Sanders.
really need cannons for here anyway?
Exactly.
Because they don't have any ships come. I mean,
Well, they would have had bateau out here,
Yeah.
you know, which a lot of bateau had little swivel guns. on
Okay.
them. But you know, anything to up your firepower. I mean,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
because you want the upper hand.
yeah. So and the reason why these bastions are built this way is to mutually support, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could have a guy at this tree pointing that way. You could have a guy at that tree pointing this way, and you get that crossfire, right?
Oh,
so it's just
okay.
like, and you still have like the same thing in the military now, how they teach you how to have fields of fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to catch your enemy in the field of fire. That's why these bastions are meant to mutually support each other. So you could be standing right over there.
And also, it probably helps out from the loading time. It's not like these modern weapons where you could just put a clip in.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So the other guys, you know, firing over here, you can.
Yeah, you can support.
Yeah, you can support fire as he's reloading his, what is it, muskets?
Muskets. Yeah.
Muskets.
Yeah. So musket ball, cannonball, grenade fragments, and again we talked
That
about,
intrigued me.
we talked about
Grenades.
the-
Yeah.
And we found grenades intact, and we've also found them exploded.
And that's over at the.
This is. Oh yeah, we have.
At the.
yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
We found some buttons, some clay pipes, you know, all the things that you would have during, you know, just living, just
Do
existing.
you think there's a lot more here that you haven't found, or do you guys pretty much cover it all?
Well, I mean, it's hard to tell what's here, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. I mean, because you have, you don't want to like,
Tear it up.
when we do, right. So when we did the archaeology 2 years ago, what we did is we did basically non-invasive exploratory stuff. So we did ground penetrating radar.
Yep.
Right. So we're looking into the ground of the fort itself, of the parade ground. And we also did an aerial magnetometer. So looking at things that might be magnetic in the pond. And so those were used to inform the team to say, okay, we want to dig here, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not just like, all right, let's get a backhoe out here and let's just start, you know, everything's very, very controlled, and you're looking at different layers of soil, and the units, you wouldn't know that there were units. I mean, it's some changing grass.
Yeah.
There, but you wouldn't really know there were units opened up out here. So that gets into preservation.
How many buildings do you think inside the fort?
3.
3. Okay. Were they just barracks or
Barracks style. Yeah, one that way, and one along the back wall.
Oh wow. So they housed how many troops, you would say?
About 160 here when it was
Wow.
Fort.
Oh yeah, you said that. Yep.
Yeah, when it was Fort Wood Creek. Probably 60 to 70 when it was Fort Bull. Fort Bull was configured, and you'll see on that. You'll see.
Yeah, I got that. Yep.
The sketch of Fort Bull was actually done by the French commander that attacked the fort. There are no known British plans of Fort Bull, so it's just the French commander's interpretation of what it was. And he was an engineer. He was an engineer. They might have gotten destroyed.
Oh, okay.
In the
fire,
in the fire.
where it blew up.
Yep. Or they could have been in Oswego and gotten captured when it fell in August. So, yeah. So I mean, it's a pretty pristine site with a lot of things that I don't know. You're surprised all the time when we're out here. You know,
You always find something. Yeah.
Whether it's not so much like material, but looking at the landscape and saying, okay, what is that little bump right there? Is that a wall? Is that a privy? Is that part of a house or a building? Why are these sloped at such an angle? Why is this height this way? Why is that way? Why is that sloped that way? You know, so that's kind of the stuff that you get into, because there are no plans for this fort either. There's a couple inserts you'll see in that kind of show the 3 structures, but it doesn't show, you know, the what the elevation was for the wall versus the moat and what all the angles were and all that stuff. We don't have that.
That's crazy.
So it's a constant learning.
Well, I'm just sitting here and I'm picturing it built up, and I could
Yeah,
and I can see it.
See that on the tree?
Yep.
So that's that. I think that's the 18-foot mark.
Right here, right here.
Yeah.
So that's how high the walls
So
were.
it would have been 18 feet above you. Yeah.
So that right here.
Yeah.
Would have been how high the walls were.
Yep.
That's how high the walls were.
Yeah. So there was probably a some kind of structure up there to be able to walk.
Oh yeah, like a plank kind of.
Like a plank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could picture it now though, because I can see the wall, especially with that now, and then their wood.
Yeah. Where's your little flyer I gave you? Yeah. Here, check this out. So here's the Carry, right? And there's those other forts that you can explore. So this is all we have.
Yeah.
Right. So we're standing right about here.
Okay, I see it right now.
So that
yeah.
structure would have been right there. Right. The gate down up front. There's the dam.
There's the wall. The pond. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
So and you can kind of see it duplicated there. But see, Fort Bull looked totally different.
Did look different.
Except these three structures, and perhaps the powder magazine where we were just standing, right?
Yep.
It might be that one. Right?
That right there, B?
Yeah, it might be.
That's crazy.
So, and then of course that's the whole route, between Schenectady and Oswego. But yeah, that's what we're looking at right there.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, I could see
Where this Webb's campment right here.
Yep.
That's where they would end up building Fort Stanwix.
Oh, okay.
A few years later, yeah.
So they're not far apart at all.
No, and this is again by where Burned Dairy is, Coal Yard Charlie's, and that other fort is over in that.
And it was an important spot because of the waterways.
Right. So you think you're coming up. This is north is where your thumb is.
Yep.
Right. So you have the two coming out of the north, east-west. Right.
I see. So they can.
So
just
you come up the Mohawk River. You get out, depending on water level. You might have to get out down here, and you might get out here. And then you portage across. If the water level's high, you get out here, right around where DeCastro's is. If it's kind of like medium height, mid-season, you might have to get in at Fort Bull. If it's really low, like it would have been this year, you would have had to go all the way basically.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so that's.
I can see now with this map, yep.
Yeah.
Wow. It's crazy. Thank you very much. I've loved everything about it.
If you get a chance, Massacre at Fort Bull by Gilbert Haggerty. No, just wait until and look. eBay's usually the best place to look for them. But it's really good. It's out of print. He gets into his archaeology and stuff, which some of it's been disproven at this point. But the story he puts together, which is like 3 chapters, really covers this stuff in great detail.
I got to look at that book out.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very intriguing. I mean, I didn't even know there was a. I mean, I knew there was a fort, but like not what you went over with me here, the history and.
Yeah, which is like that.
Yeah.
So 1907, that was put there.
What? So this rock?
Yeah. The boulder came from Steuben. We're not exactly sure how it got down here. They used a
What year? 1907?
1907.
Now you know who put it there?
Yes. Yep. So this is Kingsley is the one that funded it, and the Kingsleys they were moneyed, so she funded it. There was a lot of support for from the Daughters of the American Revolution and whatnot, and they had a ceremony. Like I said, back in late 19th century, early 20th century, this is where they commemorated not only, their colonial history, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's Stanwix, whether it's Fort Bull, and they would come here and they would raise flags. There were flags on each bastion, and it was only farm at the time. Yeah. So
I wonder if any French or British family members, if they knew that passed away here, like from overseas, like.
So there's most of the
records of names?
Well, there's so when after the attack, there's a letter that goes out from Captain Williams. He's in at Fort Williams on the other side, right? So he sends out a letter, and he basically has, I want to say there's like 12 names of people that were killed, Lieutenant Bull being one of them. Some of them were of the 50th Regiment of Foot, which was raised in New England, which was Massachusetts actually. But I think some of the others were like German Palatines, Batomen, just workers, you know. So there isn't this like, this is a list of who was, you know, in garrison, and this is who made it, and this is who didn't make it. There's
because a risky battlefield, they had a whole thing of names. Yeah,
I've never, like I said, other than that correspondence saying, hey, we lost so and so.
Yeah.
But there's only, like I said, there's only like a dozen names on there, which means that if 30 were killed on the low end, right? 30 were captured, 30 were killed, there should be more.
Yeah.
We have regimental officer lists, but who was, other than Lieutenant Bull, who the fort was named after, we don't know who was here.
Yeah.
So it's not, the other thing I will say is that when William Johnson showed up here after the attack about two or 3 days later, he talks about how you know, crude the fort was, and it didn't have firing holes and all sorts of stuff. So he makes his assessment, but he takes all the bodies that are strewn around here and he buries them in a mass grave. We don't know where that grave is.
Oh, wow, that's another thing to find. I would assume it'd be close by.
You would assume. So let's talk about, you know, the 200-yard thing, right?
Yeah. It could be 200 yards.
200 yards in any direction.
At least, because
right?
that's,
Well, probably north of the pond, right? I don't think they're going to go south of the pond. But yeah, so it could be, and that's, I hope, at least in my lifetime, that it's found.
Discovered?
Yeah, that it's found. And that, you know, at that point, you know, because even though we were British colonies, right? They were Americans. They're from Massachusetts. It's not like they were, you know.
They were born here.
They were born here.
Yep.
So they were Americans, and I think that we should be thinking about that. And I think that if we were to find it, I would think that the British would be interested in.
That's what I mean. Yep.
You know, so.
Because that's their history too.
It's their history too, and you know, I don't think there's any Native Americans buried here, but
you never know.
You never know. I mean, if they're just throwing bodies. And the other thing is, like, the bodies were probably heavily mutilated, you know?
Yeah.
Not only from just the fierce fighting, but the explosion.
Oh, that's right. So it might have been just
charred.
All right, I just wanted to say thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, Danny.
I learned a lot.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to check out
Rome Historical Society.
Okay.
Yep.
And I'll put the number right here. All right, thank you very much.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video of learning about Fort Bull. I sure did. Oh, I learned so much, guys. It was awesome. And seeing it, was just, I could see how the fort was. It was just awesome. And I want to thank the Rome Historical Society for taking the time to come out and show me and teach me about the history. They were just awesome. The guy, he was awesome. Thank you, guys. If you would like to contact them to make an appointment to come see Fort Bull for yourself, it's right here. And like I said in my last video, you cannot just cross the Erie Canal Village because it is privately owned. It is posted. You would have to contact the Rome Historical Society, and they have permission to walk back there, but you have to be present with them because it is a historical site. So just contact them and they'll bring you back there, and they're just awesome. But I just want to thank you guys for the support. If you guys haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Please like the video. That being said, I can't wait for the next one. Later, guys.